Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot. I'm really excited to be joined by Kent opening batsman Daniel Bell-Drummond, soon to be all-rounder as well, right? I'm assuming.
Trying, yeah.
How you doing, mate?
I'm very good. Yourself?
I'm good. You're telling me that you're in quarantine after coming back from the T10 tournament in Abu Dhabi. How was it there? How's the setup and everything, and how do you find it?
No, it was really good. I went last minute, so I only found out a couple of days that there was potentially a spot for me. So yeah, it was just going from training in the cold here to in the desert in the UAE was a big change, but I really enjoyed it. I was amongst some of the legends of the game. And yeah, it was obviously it's not normal life. I mean, we were still in a bubble. But no, I made some really good friends out there, especially in my team. And we got to see the other players in the other games as well. So still got to catch up with a few people, and it was nice to get a game as well. So no, I was really happy with how it went.
Yeah, I mean, you started off with a bang. I mean, 46 off 19. I mean, I saw it and sent you, pinged you a message saying that it wasn't a bad start to your T10 career. Especially in that tournament. How did it feel kind of getting out there and just putting on a bit of a display?
It was so strange because I didn't really know I was playing, like how they selected the teams. They never decided until we got to the games. So yeah, after the first few games, I saw Banton and Sharjeel opening. Obviously, the captain, Sahel Akhtar, was the top run scorer in the comp. So yeah, putting two and two together, like after the first few games especially, I wasn't expecting to play, but I thought, yeah, when it was the third, fourth place or playoff, I thought, yeah, the competition's over. They might give me a go, but I never found out until literally just before the toss. So it was probably a good thing because I didn't really have any nerves or I wasn't sort of restless, sleeping restlessly about it. So yeah, I was very nervous sort of when I walked out to bat though, because I hadn't trained. We weren't able to do much training because of the COVID protocols and everything like that. So I was thinking I was going to be very rusty, but yeah, I almost surprised myself really. Obviously, I know I can do that, but yeah, when the first few came out the middle, I was away. So I really enjoyed it.
Nice. And how's it been before that in the off season? Like what, for I guess people who are not so aware of what you guys get up to as elite sportsmen, elite, cricketers in the county scene. What do you get up to in terms of like training wise in the off season?
It varies really. So a lot of players will go abroad. This year that hasn't been the case, obviously with COVID. So again, with furlough, we were on the furlough scheme, and obviously with the lockdown before Christmas, I don't think people got that much training in. I was lucky to go to the Sri Lanka Premier League from November through to mid-December, so I got a fair bit of cricket there, a fair bit of 2020 cricket there. So the only real training I've done with Kent was in the new year for about 3 weeks until I went to the T10, and now I'm in quarantine again, so I won't be with them until sort of mid-late February. And then yeah, it'll almost be pre-season. So it's been a strange winter for me, but in general, the guys will do quite a lot of fitness. Fitness takes precedent in those times. And then they'll work on their skills, like whether it's just bowling machines with the batting coaches or going through their action with the bowling coaches. But for sure, the main thing is fitness, running and gym work, and making sure we're strong, because we're not able to do much gym during the season with the schedule being as it is.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. I guess, I was talking to Sean Dixon. He was saying that it was like 60% S&C, 40% skill work. So it sounds like it's similar as well for you guys. You mentioned you went to the Lanka Premier League. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's your first experience of franchise cricket, wasn't it?
No. So I went to Bangladesh in 2017 to play for Rashai Kings. And yeah, I played for Aukland Aces as well in 2019, but I wouldn't necessarily class that as a franchise.
Yeah. That's that T20 stuff, isn't it, in New Zealand?
Yeah. but I had one experience which wasn't that memorable. So yeah, we'll say that this one was my first time
Okay,
from Sri
fine. Cool. Let's stick with the Colombo Kings one then. So you guys
Yeah.
got to the semis. And you put on a really
Mhm.
impressive display in the semi-finals, 70 odd, wasn't it? So really, really impressive stuff from you. And how was it in general? Just being in Sri Lanka, the LPL. I mean, you're rubbing shoulders with some of the, really some of the top players like Angelo Mathews, Andre Russell. How was it?
It was brilliant. It was very similar to T10 in the sense we're still in a bubble. So the most I saw was the four walls in my room, but it was still great to be amongst those players. And the Lanka Premier League was a bit different because people weren't sure it was going to go ahead. Just with the news that was coming out, they'd already postponed the start date to a week or two further back. So there was a bit of uncertainty with that, but it was a brilliant competition. I mean, I'm so glad I got the opportunity to go and I took it. And yeah, like playing, there was only 5 teams, so the standard was quite high. The level of overseas was very good. And yeah, playing alongside the two guys you've named, Russell and Mathews, was brilliant. And you just see up close like how good they are and how they perform under pressure, and you see what makes them world-class players in their own right. So no, that was a great experience. I was glad to finish off with a bang there as well. And yeah, it was quite spin dominated tournament. So it was interesting just getting used to the wickets. But the toughest thing I found though is just not being able to train that much. So even since the lockdown March last year, like the training has been quite limited for us to be going out and playing proper cricket, which I know in England we get the luxury of having the best facilities and everything, but I've found quite tough, I guess, not being able to train as much. But I think everyone's in the same boat. So it was an enjoyable experience, but it took me a little while to get into it in Sri Lanka for sure.
I guess that's because you guys would have had set times, right, that you can train, and you can't, I guess, whereas before you have those set times, but then also you can go out yourself and do certain things. Is that why you can't do the additional work that you might have done previously?
Yeah, it's not just that. I'd say that's secondary to me. I think firstly, it's, for instance, when we arrive in countries, we're doing the quarantine period, and then in Sri Lanka, we got out the day before the first game. We got out of quarantine. So we only had 1 day out of our rooms to adjust to 40 degrees, let alone the wickets and getting some practice in. And obviously before that, Kent were on furlough. And it was locked down sort of from that October to November period. So I literally hadn't picked up a bat. I picked up a bat twice before I walked out in that game in like the last 8 weeks, 9 weeks. So, and then similar in Dubai, like I came out of quarantine, the games had started the next day. There was no practice available because of the scenario, and then you have to go out and perform. So that's something I've found quite tough. But the fact I found a way, and most people are finding a way, is it just shows that we can have sort of our preparation ruined a bit, but still find a way to perform.
Yeah, I mean, it was the inaugural tournament as well for the LPL, as you said. So there were 5 teams, and there were a lot of eyes on it because it's on Sky. So I was watching a lot of the games as well. And you mentioned that the pitches, obviously in Sri Lanka, are probably very different to the grounds that you we have here in the UK. What was the difference as a batsman? Playing on the pitches in Sri Lanka and also here. And you mentioned that you had a stint in New Zealand as well. What would you say are the differences between those 3 pitches, kind of in general?
That's a good question. I think Bangladesh spun quite a bit and was quite low, sort of low wickets. Obviously, every ground's different, but yeah, I didn't get much game time there. But that's what I noticed. Sri Lanka was weird because we were just in the one ground, and some of the wickets under lights would fly through, would be really quick. I don't know why. I think it was just quite humid. There'd been a bit of rain about, and they're fresh wickets. But yeah, in general, they did turn a bit more than in the UK. And it's different. I think it's a bit lower and skiddier. The UK definitely does turn, but it can sort of hold up a bit more rather than skid at you, especially under lights. I found it quite tough facing some of their spinners because it would really pick up pace off the wicket. And then, New Zealand I found really flat. So my home ground, I think it was Eden Park, the outer ground, like it was really flat. I think it's a drop. I'm not sure if it's a dropping wicket or not. It's quite quick paced. So I love batting there. I absolutely loved it. Cashed in when I was there. But yeah, that was probably even flatter than England. Probably had a bit more carry than some of the wickets here, but was still nicer to play quicker bowling because it was consistent bounce and you knew where it was coming. So yeah, that's what I'd compare as the three. But I enjoy playing on all of them. Obviously, I'm used to England the most, but I wouldn't mind carrying the Eden Park wicket round with me as well.
It's lovely, isn't it? So I mean, I open the batting only for my local club, and I mean, it sounds like every batsman loves the pace on the bat, right? Where it's just coming on nicely and it's even bounce. You don't have to worry about it like that, and you can use the pace. But yeah, I think that Eden Park pitch sounds nice. The drop-in pitches, I think it is a drop-in pitch, like you said. I think it is because I think they use it for other sports as well. So I think it must
exactly.
be. Yeah, which is quite cool. So that's really cool that you've had those different experiences. While we're on the subject of T20s, you had a really good T20 Blast, didn't you, last year? And you captained for a bit, at least, didn't you? I think. How was it, first of all, captaining Kent as well? How do you find it?
Yeah, thanks. No, in terms of the captaincy stuff, I definitely have got more used to it because when Billings is away, and then Denby was also away, who's the club vice captain. So yeah, they approached me to do it, and I did it a little bit in 2019 as well. And my form suffered a bit because of that. I was taking a lot on my shoulders for the team, when actually the best thing for the team is to be the best version of me that I can be at the crease. So yeah, I definitely, at first it took a bit of getting used to, but last year really enjoyed it. And no, like I like to sort of captain how I would want my captain to be. And it's been great learning from Sam Billings as well. And even before that, Northeast and Rob Key. And yeah, just putting some of their ideas together. But a lot of it, we do the plans before the games and the bowlers know what they want to do. So it's just about marshalling it on the pitch. But at the end of the day, the bowler has to feel happy with what he's delivering and the field he's got. So as long as I don't disagree fully, I'm pretty free on letting them do what they have to do. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. But I love stepping in when Sam's away and if Joe's away. But yeah, ultimately they're the best people for the job. So I enjoy learning off them and stepping in when it matters, when I have to.
That sounds good. And it sounds like you're a bit of a sponge as well, learning off other people, which is, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I've played so much cricket now. I'm not that old, I like to think, but
you're not. It's fine. I'm the same age as you, so we're really young.
Okay,
still.
Perfect. I don't have to feel too old, but yeah, I've played with some greats for the game, like even MCC trips with like Virender Sehwag and playing against some serious players and Sangakkara, and they talk to you, and AB de Villiers, like, and you just learn little things off them, even if it's just like one or two things, or they might say something. So definitely, it would be ridiculous not to be with the amount of cricket I've played.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you were in the England youth levels as well, coming through, weren't you? And I know you played the Under-19 World Cup, and you've had some England Lions. You've had quite a lot of England Lions experience as well. I know at 21 though, you hit quite a big 100 against Australia for Kent. How do you find it? Because that bowling attack was really good at the time. I think they had Mitchell Johnson, and a few others. And was that, that's a few years back now, but was that a little bit of a moment in your career where you look back on it and think that had a bit of an impact, or was it just actually, I already had that confidence and it just kind of added to what I had?
It's a good question, really. It definitely helped at the time. Like I remember going on the Lions tour after that straight away. And yeah, it just showed how good I could be against the sort of best in the world. And yeah, it was a brilliant knock. I think it was one of those where everything goes to plan, and by no means was it luck. But yeah, it was just one of those days. I don't think if I was to do that all the time, I think your name would be Joe Root. But so it clearly was something that I wanted to keep going with. But yeah, I think the county games are so different. Like that was quite a flat wicket, and it was quicker bowlers. Like a lot of the time in county cricket, it's sort of nibbly bowlers, and the wickets aren't as good as that day. So it's quite hard to compare. But I definitely took a lot of confidence from that innings and knew that if I could do it against the world's best, then I've definitely got some talent and got some ability for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, quality knockout. And as you said, it's not like you mentioned the names before that you've rubbed shoulders with or played against in like the Sehwags and the Sangakaras, AB de Villiers. So it's not like you're lacking, playing at that top level. And that's really good to hear. In terms of, you play with England Lions, etc. Do you have? I'm assuming you have ambitions to play for England, right? Is there a format that you think this is a format that I feel like I can push through and get through it, or is it a question of what? I feel like I'm good enough because your record suggests that you're good enough in all three formats to potentially push at some point. Like, what's your thinking behind it? Because you've as you said, as I've said, sorry, even in the youth levels, you've come through in England setup. You played for England Lions as well. What's your kind of mentality going forward now? Because you're playing for Kent, you're established, playing these franchises now. England, the next step for you?
It has to be 100%. Like there's not a day I don't go to bed sort of wanting to play for England. And yeah, I just sometimes that's quite tough. So I just sort of stand back from it and just take it day at a time. But yeah, obviously, I think that's anyone's dream to play for England, and doubly mine. The fact I've played, like you say, I've played. I think I'm the highest run scorer for England 19s ever. I averaged 60 for the England Lions over the 2 years I played for them. So yeah, it's only natural that I'd want that to be my next step. But yeah, ultimately, I just want to be more consistent. I feel I am at white ball. I want to improve and be a bit more well-rounded in white ball. But my numbers are there for anyone to see in 2020 and 50 over cricket. In my opinion, I don't think I could do much more. But obviously, it's just the players there are very powerful and we're world champions. And there's so much depth, like not just the guys there. There's Colin Cadmores, the Joe Clarks. There's a long list of them. So I always know that's going to be tough, but I'm not losing sleep over that. But definitely the 4-day stuff for me, I've always prioritized that. Even though I'm doing quite well in the T20 stuff at the moment, I always look to Test cricket and 4-day cricket as the pinnacle. So yeah, it'd be my dream to play Test cricket definitely over the other, or in any form. Beggars can't be choosers, but yeah, that's the first format I'll definitely choose. So yeah, I'm here every sort of pre-season and I have a plan. Some years it works, some years it doesn't. But for me, that would be my main goal, to just try and stack up the runs in the 4-day comp and yeah, make a claim for trying to play Test cricket. I know it's going to be tough, like it's never easy. And I know they've got some good young batsmen now, a lot younger than me, like the Sibleys, the Zach Crawleys, who Zach plays at Kent. Obviously, he's a brilliant player. But yeah, I don't think in Red Bull you're ever that far, because if you put together 1-2 brilliant seasons, then you're always in with a shout, I think. As you've seen, there's been so many different opening batsmen for England since sort of Andrew Strauss retired. There's been probably 20. So yeah, I wish Zach all the best for sure. But yeah, just I can only focus from my point of view, and it's a long way off. But yeah, that would definitely be my goal.
No, that makes sense. I think Zach Crawley's probably going to be playing at 3, isn't he? I think he opened in the Sri Lanka series, but only because Burns was not available. But It's interesting because, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like he obviously played very well for you guys in the 4-day format, but I felt like he was actually more dominant in the shorter formats. But maybe it's because, as you mentioned, England are World Cup champions, and in the white ball game they've got even more depth than potentially the longer format. That he got a chance there.
Yeah, I think I like being at the other end to him. I think his 4-day form was the most impressive. So, like, obviously the white ball was brilliant, but I think red ball is the hardest form to make runs and be dominant in. Obviously, you've got different types of players. Alistair Cook isn't going to do what Jason Roy can do, and vice versa. But I just think the maturity Zach showed in Division 1 against some proper attacks and was dominant against them. It wasn't that he was sticking to plans and found a way. Like, he was dominating like the top bowlers like Ashwin and James Pattinson, and I think that's what made people stand up. But even his numbers, because playing at Kent can be quite tough. So I'm glad they saw past it, because there was a lot of talk about his average from certain people before he got the double 100, and a lot of that was just because of some of the wickets we've been playing on. Like, he's a brilliant player. Like, if this isn't anything about the groundsman at Kent, they're obviously doing a brilliant job. But yeah, I'm sure if his numbers would be different had his home ground been somewhere else. So no, I'm glad he got the opportunity and he showed everyone how good he was and how good he is. Sorry.
No, that's really interesting. That's really good insight as well, because obviously you're probably the best person placed to talk about it. And as you said, I guess sometimes people get bogged down in the numbers and the stats, but sometimes you need to think about, okay, actually, as you said, where are they playing? Because even here in England and the UK, the different grounds play differently. You know, the strips play differently. It depends how it's prepared and stuff as well. So yeah, that's really interesting to hear, and also that you know your opinion on his kind of longer format, which is quite cool as well. But I think so for you. It sounds to me like your ambitions for this year are to kind of really stamp down, continue your really good form for Kent, and then try and, you know, push so that your numbers are already good, but you continue on your forms that they can only have a choice but to look at you, right?
100%, yeah. And in the Red Bull form, I haven't been as consistent as I would have liked to have been. So yeah, that's definitely on me to try and make the selectors look my way for sure. It's going to be difficult. Like, I haven't done it consistently as I'd have liked till now. So something's obviously going to have to change going forwards. But I'm fairly confident in that. And yeah, like I say, I think we've got some brilliant coaches at Kent as well who are helping me. So no, hopefully the sky's the limit, and we're still young, as we both said. So we've still got a lot of time. But yeah, I know I'm not a 20-year-old anymore, but yeah, I'd like to think I've still got a lot of cricket left for sure.
100%. And for people which I'm sure most people are familiar with yourself, but in terms of your journey into cricket, do you want to just touch upon that a little bit? I mean, in as little or as much detail as you want, I'm happy either way. But in terms of kind of growing up, how you got into cricket, and a little bit about your journey as well.
Yeah, for sure. So my dad played cricket, but he was in the army, so he played for the army team, and he also played minor counties for Dorset. This is ages ago, must be in the 70s, I think. And then yeah, he just played cricket on a Saturdays and took me along with him, and that's how I sort of grew the love for the game. And then yeah, I started getting picked for like Kent under 10s going forwards, and then I went to Dulwich and then Millfield School. So cricket was just ingrained in me. When I came home, my parents both West Indian. I grew up supporting England and loved the West Indies as well. And then at school, like, I just had the best facilities, the best coaches. Yeah, my two coaches at Millfield, Richard Ellison and Mark Davis, they were brilliant for me. So yeah, cricket was just ingrained. And then I played England under 15s, right the way through to Lions pretty much. So yeah, in as short as possible. That's how I sort of got into it.
Nice. Yeah, when I said as short as you want, you could have gone in as much detail as you want. I would have been happy for you
Yeah.
to. I don't mind. For
No,
me,
that's cool. There's not much. I'm just trying to think. So I played all the Kent age groups all the way up.
Nice.
But yeah, it was a
Mm.
brilliant sort of upbringing into cricket. Loved every minute of it.
Well, who are your? You said that you grew up and you're loving your cricket, and you also your parents are from the West Indies as well, but you grew up supporting England. So kind of similar to me. I mean, I was born here. My parents are originally from Pakistan, so I do secretly still support Pakistan as well. But of course, I support
Yeah.
England as well. And
Yeah.
for you though, who are your heroes growing up? Were there certain people that you, even not necessarily people that you might have wanted to mod a game on, but just people that you love watching as well?
Definitely. So mainly English and West Indian. I loved. I've gone through so many phases, but I'd say to answer your question, definitely think Brian Lara, Kevin Peterson, and then Chris Gale. I'd say I used to love Trescothick as well. I started using Gunnar Moore because of him, especially that 2005 Ashes. So I'd say those are the four batsmen that I grew up as a kid and have fond memories of. And then, more recently, obviously AB de Villiers is someone I try and, wouldn't say learn off. I'm not going to start sort of sweeping 95 miles an hour like he does, but he's for me like the one I watch on YouTube the most because I want to learn or see what he does, or because I feel his technique is the textbook technique in a way, in all forms as well, not just Test cricket. How he hits in the T20 stuff. So he's definitely one for me that I try and study. But yeah, there's been lots of different sort of role models or heroes along the way, but I'd say those are my main sort of 3-4 guys. Or 4
No, that's
5
cool.
guys. Yeah.
This is probably going to really make you happy, but I do see a little bit of the KP flair in the way you play sometimes with the kind of whip through. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thought you might like that. But when you were saying that, I thought, oh, actually, that's interesting. Yeah, AB de Villiers is interesting, isn't he? Because he obviously has been so good in all formats, and now people. But I guess if you're really young, you only really see him as a T20 batsman, but people forget how good he was in Test cricket and also ODI cricket. And it's just phenomenal, like legendary player really was, which is amazing. So you grew up, and those are your role models, and now you are here where you are. And we mentioned before that you're developing, hopefully, maybe into an all-rounder. How did that come about? Your little bowling development. It's come on quite a bit recently. Where's it come from?
So I always bowled as a kid. To be honest, I was a genuine all-rounder up until around the age of 17. So like I was bowling for England under 17s as an all-rounder. And then, I had to have an ankle operation, which, I couldn't bowl basically for 2 years. And then I had an op at the end of my under 19s career, because that op would have taken me out of like any tours with the under 19s, which I could bat fine, field fine. So it didn't make much sense. And then I tried to pick it up again after that World Cup, sort of 2013. And I did really well. I think I took a fourth in the second team, and then I tore my side, and then I was out because I was only playing as a batsman in the first team again. And I went down to the twos to get some overs and to find some form. And when I tore my side, I missed like 5 or 6 weeks. I just thought, forget it. Like I was pretty annoyed that I'd missed it, and my bowling was beginning to become injury prone. So most people wouldn't know that I bowled. And then, I think around 2017, so this is like 5 years on, I was just in a bad run of form. And I was getting really annoyed. And obviously, you're a cricketer yourself, really superstitious people. Really, we just do whatever we can to make ourselves feel better or just stay. Because if you're nicking off at 4-day cricket matches, it's really boring. You're sitting in the dressing room and then you're fielding.
I get bored when it's just a 1-day game. So for you guys, it must be a nightmare.
Exactly. Like I've got to say, I enjoy the fielding. So any kids who are watching, love fielding. But yeah, I started bowling just before one of the days play, and the guys were looking at me like, "Why are you trying to bowl your rubbish off spin when you can bowl decent pace?" And I was like, "Oh, might as well try this." This was like maybe July, August 2017, and then yeah, I just went on from there. And my first proper year was probably 2 years after that, where I became more confident in my body. But it's still quite tough. Like I'm still quite injury prone, so I'm lucky that I've got the batting and I can just work on the bowling in the background and be an option if need be. But I hope that I'm still in the team as a batsman anyway, so it's not too much pressure on it.
No, that's cool. That's cool. I've got a couple of mates who are huge Kent fans, and they wanted me to ask you about that. Like, how did that come about? I'll say, I'll make sure I ask him. I'll make sure I ask him
Yeah,
about
no,
it.
I always bowled as a kid, and I could always bowl. So it's not like a fluke. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
it's been dormant. It's been dormant for a while.
It's not like you suddenly picked up the cricket ball and you're inspired, and just next thing you're running in, steaming in. You're like, hold on, let's pick this
Exactly.
up. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
In terms of, you actually mentioned the 2005 Ashes, and I talked to your teammate Ollie Robinson, and he said, I mean, he's a lot younger than us even, and he was saying that for him it was quite a big moment for him to kind of inspire him a little bit. For you though, because even when I was growing up, I still remember that. Did it have quite a big impact on you in terms of I don't know, in terms of your development or just loving the game, or did it have that type of effect on you?
Not really, not from a loving the game point of view. Like I always, like yourself, probably, I watched a lot of cricket before that, like the '03 World Cup, the '99, can just about remember the '99 World Cup. So no, like I was always loved cricket and was on the Kent books by then, but definitely going forwards in terms of like role, like how I play, or like the people I role model, sort of modeled myself on, had an impact for sure. Like watching KP and Trescothick and even like Ponting and these guys, definitely. I started to look at the game a bit more like from an educational point of view, and just trying to see what these guys do. But no, I was definitely fully in love with cricket before that for sure. But yeah, ironically, I think my GM sponsorship came through the door like not long after that. Not long after that Ashes, so I was really happy to use the same bat as just Gothic. I thought at the time, obviously, it wasn't the same, just the same stickers, but it was good enough for a kid then.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, I remember even loads of people, because Michael Vaughan used GM as well, didn't he? So it was Trescothick and Vaughan, and people were GM was really fashionable. After 2005 Ashes, they made it fashionable, didn't they? That was quite
Exactly.
cool. If we fast forward to today, and you mentioned Joe Root earlier in the interview, and you're talking about, if you're going to score consecutive hundreds, you're Joe Root, and he obviously is in fantastic form. I think before he had his best year that he's ever had, the maximum hundreds he scored was 3. But he's already scored 3, and one's a double as well. And people kept on saying, he had an issue with converting his 50s into hundreds. Doesn't seem to have that problem at the moment in 2021 at the start anyway, first 3 matches. So for you though, someone who, obviously you played against him, you played against all these top players. But do you look at that, and there's a really interesting stat which said he swept over 300 balls in that Sri Lanka tour. Does that make you think, when you see something like that, do you think actually that's something that I can develop in my game, or you at the point where you're like, I know how I play, and yeah, okay, like that works for him. But for example, someone like Zach Crawley, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he's more someone who takes on the spinner, uses his feet and comes down. Are you of that thought as well, that you have your own game and you know exactly how you want to play?
No, not at all. Not at all. Obviously, I have to back myself when you go out in the middle and stick to your game plan. Even if your game plan is adaptable, like stick to that whole plan. But no, like I'm always learning. I think even Darren Stevens is always learning. So no, that would be very naive to just think. Even I'm sure Joe Root now swept more for a reason, because he's learned that that's the best way to play those conditions. So not at all. I'll definitely look at that and try and incorporate that into my game. It's not necessarily as big an issue in England. So definitely, if I was to go on a tour to the subcontinent, especially from a Test cricket point of view, or a longer format point of view, I would definitely start to try and sweep more. But yeah, I look at these guys and still learn. Like I said, I watched clips of the batsmen I like, and try and obviously I know my game. I know the base of my game, so I'm not gonna start batting left-handed because my hero bats left-handed. But yeah, I'm always trying to learn and improve for sure.
Okay, so it sounds like you've got your base. You know, kind of what your strengths are and your base skills are, and what you're good at. But then you add to it, like kind of you pick and choose what you think you can add additionally to your game, and just keep on improving, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's correct.
yeah. You mentioned Darren Stevens, so I'm gonna have to ask you about him because I was hounded by my mate having to ask you about what it's like to face the Kent legend that is Darren Stevens in the nets.
It's weird. In the nets, he's pretty chilled. So like he's never ever bowled like a no ball in a game. Like that's his sticking point, which he hasn't. I've generally never seen him bowl one, but he'll bowl like 19 yards. Not really. He'll obviously stick to his game plans, but yeah, there's some days where you're like, oh, this isn't too bad, and then there's other days you'll go out to the middle practice and he's now coming off his proper run and he's the game's tomorrow and he just really wants to get his rhythm up, and it's chaos. Like both sides of the bat are in danger for sure. And he's a genius because I always think, why don't batsmen walk at him? Because he's not a guy who likes having the keeper up. But even when you try it in the middle practice, like it hardly works. Like he'll still nick you off, or he'll still pitch you on the line of the stumps, and it's not going to go over. So he's just a great bowler, and I think I noticed. I think in the nets is one thing because there's no price on my wicket in the nets as such. Like I can just pick the stumps up and go again. But when I'm in the middle, like fielding, watching him, it's just like poetry at work, really. It's just how he plays with batsmen and sets them up, and yeah, it's just so strange because they'll like, especially the overseas batters like South Africans and Australians, they'll be smashing like the 90 miles an hour at the other end, and they can't lay a bat on Darren at times. So it's just remarkable to watch, really.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I think sometimes people just it doesn't matter, does it, about the pace? Sometimes it's just about where it lands and the skill you've got control over your bowling. And he seems like someone who's got that from the sounds of it. The county formats has changed for this year, and it's not going to be Div 1, Div 2, and you've got these groups. What are your thoughts on it?
Mixed, really. So from the negative side, like having fought to get into Div 1 for so long, I don't think my first game in Div 1 was 2019, and my debut was 2011. So you can imagine that was pretty demoralizing having.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I just feel as well like a lot of feats in Div 2 can sometimes be overlooked, probably rightly so. I'm not going to sit here and say it's better because it's not. That's why it's first division. But I felt like a lot of performances would sometimes be overlooked, and then to sort of get in Div 1 and do quite well, and then for it to now not be a thing was quite, I wouldn't say tough to take. I was still playing cricket. It's still every game is still in the eyes of people, so I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, that was pretty annoying, I guess. But from the positive side, I mean, it's great that the smaller counties can still showcase their players, and if you do well and you're at a smaller county, you don't have to feel like you want to move to a bigger club just because of that Div 2 stigma. And yeah, you get to play the best teams every year. So on a whole, I actually think it's positive, and hopefully it will make. I mean, Kent we're a weird sort of middle ground club where we're a big club for sure, but we're not like a test playing ground like with lots of money like Surrey. So yeah, it's just brilliant that we'll be able to play all these other big clubs every year, and it's not a threat of like relegation, for instance, and potential. I know some teams where players have left because they've got relegated. So it's good for clubs that won't happen in theory, because everyone can play everyone.
That's a really balanced way of looking at it. Actually, before I was so like, no, I love the traditional Div 1, Div 2, and then but you kind of sold me a little bit, so I think I'm more mellowed on it. So you've
I'm
explained
50-50
that really well.
as well. Yeah, I just feel if guys like, I don't want to name clubs or anything, but I know a lot of small clubs who bring players up and they'll just lose them because they're just told that selectors don't look at Div 2. So I'm glad that they'll be able to play against the best every week. Each other every week. Yeah,
100%. Also, I've got a question for you. It's going to be quite an interesting one. Who is the best player, talent-wise? So it doesn't necessarily need to be the person who's gone on to do the most, but it could just be talent-wise that you've played with. And who's the most talented player you've played against?
Ooh. So what's the like parameter, like in terms of what, are they finished cricket or are they on the way up, or in general?
Just in general. So it doesn't need to be. It doesn't even need to be someone current. It could be someone who's retired now. As I said, it's pretty loose. It doesn't need to be someone who's gone on to do amazing things. Even it could be someone who actually you saw them. They're credible. They may haven't fulfilled it. They may have whatever kind of picks fancy.
It's a good question. I just don't know what way to look at it.
It's a tough one.
It's a nice question. That I think Zach definitely could be up there. Zach Crawley could definitely be up there. That's a very easy answer, though. I'll try and give you something more
juicy.
You wouldn't have thought of. Yeah, that you wouldn't have thought of. Like someone who I've thought he's had. I don't want to go into his issues or anything, but someone who I think is definitely good enough to play for England in whatever format, who hasn't yet for whatever reason, is Joe Clark. I think he's a brilliant player. Like, I remember I played a fair bit of England Lions with him, and I remember him scoring a 200s in a game against Kent for Worcester when we had Yasir Shah, and he was playing him so well. So he's a guy, just timing hasn't been kind to him, and obviously other bits. But he's someone definitely who is good enough in any format. I think, I'm not saying he should be in there instead of anyone, but I look at him as an England level player. I think from a different standpoint, it's like Ollie Robinson at, not Kent's Ollie Rob, he's a brilliant player, but Ollie Robinson at Sussex.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant bowler. Like, literally, I don't want to talk him up too much because I have to face him this year, but he's awesome. Like, but I don't know if it's just that they don't think he's quick enough, or he's just not better than Jimmy and Broad, obviously. And that's the type of style he is. But there's like, when they say the streets will remember, I think he's one of them. Like, Ollie Rob, definitely. I feel like coming down the hill at home, like, it's not like someone from abroad would be like, oh, Ollie Rob, Sussex. They'll know like the Ollie Stones or the quicker guys. But yeah, Ollie Rob's a brilliant bowler at Sussex. Trying to think of something more interesting. So I have a friend called Anish Kapil. He used to play for England under 19s, and then he played a bit for Worcestershire and Surrey. I'd say he's had the most raw potential I've seen, and not quite got to where he feel he should be. I speak to him quite a lot still. He's a lovely guy, good friend, and he can genuinely can clock at 90 miles an hour and can genuinely bat top six in first class cricket, which he has done. So yeah, I'm really fingers crossed that he COVID calms down and he can start trialing again for twos for second teams and show how talented he is to clubs. But he's had injury problems, so I mean that's part and parcel of the game. But he's definitely someone who can bat really well. He, at his best, bowl. Sorry, put that phone down. He's definitely someone who can bowl at his best 90 miles an hour and bat top six for a club. So I'm hoping he finds a club. So yeah, that's off the top of my head. I'm sure I could think of others, but they're the ones which. And it's probably because I played against Joe in the T10, and I just remembered like how good he was. So yeah, probably say those guys.
Okay, interesting. That's interesting because you could have reeled off like I don't know, you could have reeled off Mitchell Johnson or Andre Russell, but it's interesting because you've had a lot of experience with these guys.
Yeah, they're obviously like that. See, I chose to go that side in the question. Like in terms of the most talented I've seen.
Yeah.
In the sense of wow, you're a freak. Like Russell's probably up there, like hits at miles and can bowl 90 clicks with a dodgy knee. He's unbelievable. In terms of like genius that has fulfilled it, I'm trying to think. And Sangakkara probably, yeah, like that period he was at Surrey.
Yeah. I watched
playing
him.
a different game. Yeah, playing a completely different game. Yeah, I'd say Sanga. I've played against so many like that. Yeah, if I saw it as like a wow moment every time, it wouldn't be good. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to compete with a lot of these guys, so I tend to just brush it down like psychologically. But yeah. Yeah, I'll let you know if I think of any others.
That's all right. That's all right. You can let me know later if you do. You mentioned though about the you kind of very briefly touched upon the mental side of things. As an opening batsman as well, how much of the game do you think is mental?
Most of it, definitely most of it. I'm doing a lot of work on it now. Not in terms of like this mental side, but in terms of just making sure my technique's solid and I can go back to that come what may. So whether the ball's doing quite a lot and then you start to think, the last two have jagged away from me. So instead of playing the one which jags away, just stay focused and go back to basics and play the ball on its merit and not. I think that's the thing that can mess a lot of people up, especially in red ball, is playing for balls which it previously happened, and sometimes nicking straight balls because a few have jagged before that. So in that sense, it's definitely very psychological, and also just the outside pressure. Just if you're not in great form, or if the other team are on a bit of a roll and you're trying to deal with that, there's obviously those pressures. But yeah, I think most people, like when I watch Alistair Cook bat, for instance. He's one of, I'd put him on the Marcus Trescothick list as well, but obviously he's a bit later in terms of my role models, but he just strikes me how structured and simple he is, and he's not very expansive. I don't look at him and field and be like, wow, this guy is a genius, but he plays his off stump really well. He doesn't let anything fluster him. And he plays a short ball really well. So like he knows really he has to focus on that off stump because he plays the short ball so well. No one tries to bounce him. And if they do, he'll more times than not hit them for four. So he's definitely a good example for how to mentally and psychologically go about batting and opening batting in red ball cricket for sure.
That's really interesting. He definitely comes across as someone who's comfortable in his own game and he knows his strengths. So anything kind of short of the wicket, short and wide, he'll put away, cuts, pulls really well, and knows that those are his scoring shots and kind of bats around that. So I agree with that. And it's interesting that you said about it's mostly mental because I feel like there's a lot of cricketers out there who probably have the skill, but it's not all. Skill is only part of it, and you need that mental side to push you through, and also to be consistently. Yeah, I think that's the right way of putting it, which is quite interesting. What would you say then is the role? Because Sean said this to me, that he has a lot of discussions with you about the role of a red ball opener, and he was saying that sometimes you can think, oh, is it to go out there and score hundreds and average 40, etc., or is it to see out the new ball and kind of make sure that you're, I guess, soaking up the pressure so that the middle order, when they do eventually come in, have an easier job? Or do you think it kind of varies depending on the match scenario?
It's a good question. I think from a generic standpoint, like if you're a coach, you might pick a team because, this guy can see off the new ball well, or as outsiders, we may look at the England team and say, Denley did very well, saw off quite a few balls in his time and helped Joe Root and Stokes. But from an individual point of view, I just think you want to score the most runs you can. So like when they come at the end of the season and say you didn't have a great year, it's very tough it's not going to say on the stat sheet, but he made sure Sam Billings was able to come out after lunch, not before lunch. So from a selfish point of view, from an individual point of view, I think it's like any batsman. When you get a start, you want to cash in, and I'm sure, as much as some coaches might rather you get 30 every game, I'm sure any opening batsman would rather get 0 and then 100 and then 0 and then 100. So from my point of view, it's about runs, and that in turn helps the team really, because it doesn't put the pressure on the middle order all the time. Just because you saw off the new ball, it actually flips it round in your head, and by being worried about yourself, you're helping the team by getting those big scores. So that's what I would say. Obviously, from a coach's point of view, it's great when the opener helps out the middle order, and for sure, like that is my job, and I do see myself as that being one of my roles. But no, my main role is to score as many runs as I can that day.
Yeah, I feel like in red ball though, anyway, like if you're going to score runs, you're eating up balls normally anyway, right? There's not many people that are going to come out and score 100 with 100 strike rate, right? They're going to go at a certain rate anyway, I guess. So I guess that comes hand in hand, and it's interesting because you said it's selfish, but it's not really, because in a way, even though cricket's a team sport, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's the strangest sport in the way that really it's a bunch of individuals. And it's so individual, because even fielding, you field as a unit, but at the end of the day, you're the one who's throwing the ball. If you drop a catch, it's you, right? You've dropped it. It's not like, a team's dropped. Yeah, of course, on paper, but when you look at the scorecard, it will say, this person dropped the catch or this person took the catch. And so I think that it's really strange because it's basically a bunch of individuals, but the outcome is obviously for the team. So it's really, really strange. It's just so strange to think about, I think, in a way. But yeah, that's really good insight actually about opening the batting, because I feel that a lot of people do think about what's the best way to do it. But I guess if you do go in with such a defensive mindset, then sometimes you can get bogged down and get out. And I understand that at times you will have to see off the new ball depending on the conditions, but I guess from the generic way,
absolutely. I think it's definitely becoming more and more of a thing. Like I know Sibley sort of bucks that trend because he's so Pujara-like. Like he's got a brilliant defense and he knows his game to a T, and he's got great concentration. So he can bat time and feel comfortable. But I guess for some players, they want to put the pressure on the bowlers, so that if they miss their spot, they'll hit them for runs, and then that in turn will mean they'll get less good balls. So I think that's more of the trend. I know Zach definitely looks at batting like that at the top level. Even Rory Burns, I think Burns is a brilliant player, like scored so many runs against us over the years for Surrey. But even he, like for his technique and for his tag, he's quite attacking. So like people would think, he's gritty or he's because of his grip and his setup. But no, like if you bowl anything on his legs, including off stump. Like he's going to hit you through the leg side for runs, and he's started to improve his offside game. Like he does go for his drives. He will pull it if he's comfortable. So no, I've definitely played against even Burns, who's not seen as an attacking opener, and he's gone at 70 strike rate against Kent, for instance. So yeah, I think that's been more and more the trend, trying to put bowlers under pressure.
No, I agree. I think Test cricket's in a good spot considering some of the matches that have happened. You know, obviously you had the India's winning the Gabba against Australia, and then West Indies had put on a ridiculous display. I mean, Carl Myers,
Chase, wasn't it?
that was unbelievable, chasing 395.
Chase.
And obviously England are in really good stead at the moment, winning their first 3 matches. So I think Test cricket's in a good spot, which is nice to see. And as a Pakistan fan, we won against South Africa 2-0 at home, so that was good for us. Yasir Shah, who you mentioned, obviously did quite well there. I want to get your thoughts on something, and again, you can go into as little detail or as much as you want. So the ECB did a survey kind of around racing within the county game because, obviously an ex-Yorkshire captain's come out, and since then there's been, there's lots of other stuff that's happened, and, rightly so, I think. And in that survey, over half the people said that they kind of experienced some sort of kind of prejudice or racism in the game or in the county circuit. So I just want to get your thoughts on it.
No, it's a good topic. It's a good discussion. I think that's quite sad that obviously that many people have felt that. And yeah, I know that ECB had taken the steps forward to look at these things and to bring sort of more clarity as to why people feel this way. Rightly so. And yeah, they're putting other steps in place to try and make it more of an inclusive game. For whatever reason, the stats aren't lying, that it's the amount of people that reach the top level compared to the amount of the ethnic population in England isn't matching up. So rightly so, they're studying why that's the case, and I'm happy with that. But yeah, it's a shame that number of people feel that way. And yeah, I think it's clearly not just cricket, it's society as a whole at the minute. But I'm a positive person, so yeah, I'm optimistic that things can move forward for the better. And yeah, it's as well, like I'd like to think it's not in a bad place either. It just needs to come up to scratch, really. So that's just my thoughts on it. But obviously a very delicate topic, something we both live in different ways, being in England, lived through. But yeah, like I say, I'm an optimistic person, so fingers crossed that things will improve for the better.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest thing is that, as you said, the ECB are kind of looking into it and obviously wanting to make sure that they enforce change and make sure that people feel more comfortable. And hopefully it's a start of something better, as you said, and people hopefully, in whatever a year, 2 years time, and if they did a similar survey and they've at least halved that. I mean, it'll be fantastic to say it's all gone, but if they've halved, I think they can say, well, okay, that at least change is happening, which is good. Onto a topic which, as you're playing at the top level, you've got your eye on England, you're in a really good spot. How do you think personally cricket can grow globally in the best way possible? And the reason I ask it is because T10 cricket, which you've experienced, obviously you made your debut recently. It seems that may be a format that they use potentially to push cricket into the Olympics. And that's potentially obviously a way of growing it. But yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on it because I feel at the moment cricket is, obviously it's a global sport, but it's not the same as something like football, where obviously you have 25, 30 competitive nations playing a World Cup, and they've cut the World Cup from 14 to 10 teams as well. So I just wanted to get your opinions on how you think cricket can grow in the best way possible going forward.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I speak like you from a fan's point of view of it. But yeah, I don't know with society as it is, like if sort of playing any longer than 2020 cricket in the newer in sort of the non-test playing countries is going to be possible. So I'm thinking that it's going to be 2020 or 10 over cricket if it's going to be in the Olympics. Obviously, I'd love all countries to play all forms of cricket, but obviously that's not financially possible. And like England, Australia, India, we have our traditions as well. Pakistan, that we know why we stand in a field for 4 days at a time, because there's history of it. We know like the intricacies of the game, but I don't know how sort of new countries you're going to bring a kid into sport and say, oh, don't play football, come in field for 5 days. That's the aim of the game. So I just think society as a whole is changing. I think club cricket is seeing the effects of that. Like a lot of kids aren't staying on to field 50 overs on a Saturday. So yeah, in terms of the global game, it's not like the perfect way of doing it, but I think if the goal is to get more countries involved, and these tournaments keep increasing, like say there's more tournaments in the USA, I've heard they built a centre of excellence there, and are encouraging more people to come there on green cards. So I think if cricket ends up being this way, I think it's going to have to be 10 over or 20 over cricket, how other countries get involved. So yeah, I just think it's out of necessity. It's not necessarily how I want it to be or how I would envision it, but I just don't realistically see us making, even like Ireland and Afghanistan, like it's so hard for them to put on test matches in terms of getting the funding, the sponsorship, and having the first class structure in place and the number of cricketers to make it competitive. It's just very hard, knowing some of the Irish cricketers as well.
No, that's really interesting. Yeah, I think again, the thing is, it's one of those things that it's difficult because you can't just give test playing, you can't give test playing status to any country. So I think you have to earn it. So I understand that, and I think, yeah, in terms of the Olympics, I guess T10 cricket is probably, or T20, I guess even, is the way forward, because realistically, if you want a number of countries to be part of it, I mean, you can't really play, even one-day cricket because you'll be there for ages. The Olympics
Exactly.
will have to extend it. So, especially if you want more countries to get involved. And I think I was a bit disappointed when the ICC cut it from 14 to 10, because, I mean, even people like Sachin Tendulkar and I think the Australian chairman said it, that they want to see as many teams as possible in that World Cup, because, teams like Holland, obviously Ireland, even teams like Nepal, Namibia, a lot of these teams have pulled off upsets in the past, and they obviously, that's the only way that they're going to improve, right, by playing the top nations. Otherwise, it's hard. They'll improve, but only by a set amount. And I guess in the T20 World Cup this year, there are more of those, like Scotland are going to be in, and teams like that as well. So I think that's good. But yeah, I agree with you. And maybe it's a case of, like you said, you have T10. It's not the ideal thing for me either, because I'd rather
it's not for me.
Yeah, I'd rather you had like one day or test cricket in the Olympics, because then that's how people perceive it. But to actually get people to understand it, maybe you need to start with T10 first, so that they catch the bug, and then you can like progressively go T20, whatever, one day cricket, and maybe that's the way to do it. So I think that makes sense for sure. That's cool. Okay, apart from that, is there anything you want to touch upon before we wrap up?
No, not really. I haven't thought of any new names for my most talented players I've seen. Thanks for having me on, mate. It's been a pleasure.
No problem
to
at all.
talk to you about cricket and other bits as well, not just my cricket.
No, it's really, the pleasure's been all mine, and I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a great chat. Before we end, actually, what's your prediction for the England-India series? How do you think it's going to go?
I really get confused with Test cricket, because I don't know how India beat Australia in Australia twice, and then that made me think England wouldn't even draw a game, let alone win a game. And Joe Root's turned into Don Bradman. So I don't have a clue. I'd be completely guessing. All I can say is I know the tracks will probably spin from day one more. Like, I feel England played their best game and deserved to win, but obviously the easiest time to bat was in that first innings. But I'm assuming the wickets from now will spin from day 1 to 5, so that will mean that the toss isn't as big a factor. And with England resting players as well, I'm still going to back England, so I'm going to go 2-1 England, but I wouldn't be surprised that, well, it's not hard to say, but I wouldn't be surprised if India come back into it and win, just because England are resting players. And I know Folkes, brilliant cricketer, hope he does well. He's a good friend of mine. But yeah, it can't be easy for him to step into his first game in the pressure cooker in India, and I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I know Archer's injured as well. So yeah, we'll see. I'm standing on the fence, but only because I was confused how we just dominated them really after they won in Australia. And we lost 4-0, I think, in Australia.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're meant to be better at those conditions than India. But yeah,
that's such a good point. Yeah, Ben Folkes is. I feel like he's one of the most unlucky cricketers because I feel like he's done so well for England, but because obviously they've got Butler there.
And Bairstow,
and Bairstow as well. Like it's just been really difficult because he hasn't really done anything wrong. He's such a good keeper as well. I'm a massive because I support Surrey because I'm from Surrey. So you guys have been a thorn in our side for quite a long time. But but it's been so I follow him quite closely, and I know that he's fantastic as well.
He's an awesome player,
yeah,
awesome cricketer.
But it's funny you said about India and Australia because I mean India had like a B/C team really, but they just got such good squad depth.
Yeah.
And they managed to pull off like a fantastic victory. Kohli wasn't there for the 2 games they did win as well. And then obviously they come back and they've got a full strength side. And then England, as you said, like they're at home, so you just expect them to be on this high, and they're just going to carry it on. And England have put on a fantastic display. So I guess that's the beauty of Test cricket, isn't it? It really is. Like you can have like that's what the West Indies victory. Like honestly, I think they will probably outplay for the first 4 days, but it didn't matter because in day 5 they put on such an amazing display. And Kalmaz in his debut was just like unbelievable. It's so great to see, and I feel like you don't get that. Maybe you don't really get it as much in the other formats.
I completely agree. Like you just get the personalities coming out, and you can like feel how hard they've worked for something, or like you can see how it's ended up where it has. Whereas sometimes the shorter formats can be just a bit hit or miss, just whoever has a day out. But I think there's a place for all of them. But for me, I'm a purist, probably like yourself. I do the runs I'll cherish the most will be 4-day runs. And yeah, I'm sure that'll be the same for a lot of players as well.
Yeah, I feel like they're the hardest earned, especially with the red ball as well, probably. So that's why.
Absolutely.
And actually, sorry, if it's okay, I forgot to mention the fielding aspect of it, because you said before, kids watching, you love your fielding. How much has that come on though, since we were younger to now? I mean, it's become really innovative, like the boundary fielding as well in T20s. Is there a lot more emphasis on it, do you think, as you've gotten older?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's moving with the times for sure. I just think even the fast bowlers now, all the fast bowlers at Kent are brilliant fielders. And sometimes in our 2020 team, like you can literally leave everyone in their place and just flip the game round, and they can do third man to long off and still be a brilliant fielder. So yeah, it's massive. I think there's always been the good fielders in all the generations, but especially the bowlers, they're beginning to be brilliant, just as good, if not better than some of the batters. Just because they're athletically very strong, they're tall, they can jump on the boundary and stop balls which could have been a 6. And especially in the short formats, like I say, I think, we can all have some common sense. Like if it's day 5 and you need your fast bowler to be steaming in for you, you probably don't want him diving headfirst into a board. But for the most part, I think the bowlers have really upped their fielding for sure.
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely more of an expectation, isn't there, on people that you can be as good as you want with the battle ball, but fielding is seen as a discipline that everyone needs to have, which is quite cool. Thank you very much. Sorry for
No worries.
putting that one in lastly, but I thought, you know what, actually, I should ask him about it while I've got him on. And hopefully quarantine. How many days have you got left?
When Thursday, I'm out next Thursday, so okay. 10 days. 10 days, so all good.
There's a lot of cricket on, so you can watch that.
Exactly. I got another test to get through. Well, quite a few, isn't there? Obviously, no, that Pakistan, South Africa's finished, isn't it? So it's just India.
We're playing T20s. So if you're interested in the T20s, I think tomorrow and Sunday.
I did watch it yesterday, I think. Yeah. Good game, wasn't it? Very good game.
Yeah, Mahendra Rizwan is he's. I think we've really struggled to find someone who can keep really well and also contribute with the bat, but he seems to be someone who can do it. And we really struggled for an all-rounder. But Faheem Ashraf looks like we haven't had a seam all-rounder since like Abdul Razak, which is ages ago.
Where's Shadab Khan? Is he injured?
He's injured. Yeah. He's
okay, because him and Ashraf is like two generational rounders potentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's quality. I'm a massive fan. But yeah, hopefully we do quite well in those. South Africa got a bit of an inexperienced side because I think they were looking forward to playing Australia, which got cancelled in the test matches. Yeah, I think I talked to a South African domestic player who plays for the Titans, and I asked him about that, and he said, I think it's maybe a case of politics, whatever it might be. But it's difficult. It's delicate situations, isn't it, at the moment with COVID and everything.
Exactly.
So you never know how comfortable people are. But thanks very much, mate. Hope the rest of the quarantine goes okay, and hope this season as well goes really well, and really looking forward to seeing you out. And fingers crossed, you keep playing on and get that England call. And if you're up for it, maybe later on in the year we can catch up and have a chat if you're up for it as well.
For sure, mate. Great to talk.
No worries. Have a good one, mate.
Great talk. All the best. You too. Bye-bye.